Hey now, welcome to the 19th episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, welcome back. And if this is your first time finding us, well then welcome. I'd like to start out tonight's episode with a quote from Dr. Albert Hofmann. I was completely astonished by the beauty of nature. Our eyes see just a small fraction of the light in the world. It is a trick to make a colored world, which does not exist outside of human beings. So, I wanted to use a quote about LSD because tonight it's just Stan and I. How you doing there, Stan?
Good, man.
And wanted to talk about my experience last week where I was able to get out into nature, like Mr. Hoffman was talking about there, and take LSD for the first time. And I was trying to think about it, and I don't know the exact time that I stopped taking LSD, but I think it was about 13 or 14 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I've, through the weird ways that the universe works, I was able to get my hands on some again, and it just kind of blows in and out of your life sometimes, it seems like. But as it came into my life, and I've had it for a while, and I haven't had I knew that it's a hefty investment of time, and I wanted to do it right, and I just didn't have the freedom to do it. So I was lucky enough to get this kind of perfect storm of life situations to arise, and I was able to get away and get outside and take it. So yeah, I just we don't have a guest tonight, but I just wanted to talk with Stan about it. And I know I texted you a little bit while I was up there and while it was going on, but we've kind of held off talking about it too much. So definitely, I know you're itching to hear about it.
Yeah, and it's always good making it, the first take of hearing anything. So
yeah,
you reached out to me in the middle of it, and then I think kind of like on the come down, and then you mentioned that you tried to film a video during it too.
Oh yeah, I know some people would love to see that, but I mean, it's not embarrassing, but it's just like I don't know. It makes me question the whole experience a little bit, maybe, because, you have in your head, like, you're like, oh my God, I fucking get it. I understand everything. But then, from a neutral eye, it's like, I just kept saying bizarre over and over. I was like, it's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like, I was just like saying that.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, it's kind of embarrassing, but you want to see yourself in that situation from a neutral position. Like, oh my God, this guy's like a yogi, man. Like, look at him. He's got it all together. Like, that's some, profound shit he's saying, but no, he's just saying everything's bizarre,
Yeah.
But
it's the hardest thing to articulate, though. Like that moment during the experience of the trip is the hardest thing to articulate.
Yeah, it really is. And, I like, I reached out to you and some other people I was texting, and it wasn't out of like, cause I've had to contact people when I'm on a, difficult mushroom trip. Right. And been like, dude, I'm fucking wigging out or whatever, and it was weird. And this is definitely one difference I noticed, and I can get into, more differences between, and that's a big thing. I wanted to like kind of see if I could tell a difference between an LSD trip and a mushroom trip,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to judge them fairly, as an adult. And one difference is definitely like, man, I felt really social. I went up there. I was by myself. I went up to my place in New York where it's, I don't have to see anyone if I don't want to. Like there's just woods and ponds and trails and you know, there's other people, but I can stay far away from their house and their property,
Yeah.
and whatever. And they're old people that are just kind of just out doing their own thing. Like they don't give a shit what I'm doing. Um, but and I knew I couldn't like go talk to them, like I wouldn't have made much sense. And so like luckily there's like enough cell phone reception to just, like hit the interweb, man, and like I did it during the day. I dosed at 1 o'clock. And
How much did you
most
take?
so I ended up taking 150 micrograms, which like I was on the fence about 100 or 150. And I'm on the fence now about whenever I do it again, if I'm going to do 150 again or just 100. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good because it was early enough that not only did I wasn't like up all night. I mean, I fell asleep earlier than I usually do, actually. And but most people were up, like, and I think it was like it was it was a Sunday. So yeah, most people were just hanging out doing whatever, so like I was able to really like text with a lot of people. And but I tried to like not have my phone on all the time. Like I would leave my phone at the house and then just like walk around the woods basically.
Yeah.
Until I started getting scared that I would get lost. And I'd be like, I got to go back to the trail. Like, cause I was just like, when I walk in the woods, I don't like just walk on a trail. Like I just go in a direction, and like, I look for trees or landmarks. Like I'm usually mushroom hunting and I'm looking for like habitats and stuff like that. So like, I don't stick to trails. And, I was like, but that was really hard on acid because like, I kept going like, holy shit, I'm going to get lost out here. And I would go back, and then I would do that for a while and then come back to my phone and be like, dudes, check out what I was just thinking about, and I was just like texting either you or like probably like 4 or 5 other groups of people. Um, and actually there's a group of my friends, Sean that was on the podcast. I'm on a group text with him and some other buddies that I worked with. And, they actually took, acid like the week before. They all went to go see Tool in Louisville. It might have been a couple weeks before or whatever, but I couldn't go, and it was the same batch of the same stuff. So I was like, "But you guys are kind of my test bunnies here because I'd only taken it for microdosing up until then, and they took." They don't know how many micrograms because they didn't do the volumetric like I did. They just kind of cut the paper and make. He was like, well, okay, I think it's like kind of this, and there wasn't even any like designs on it or anything. So, I don't know how much they took, but they did it like at night at a concert and like had a crazy time too.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, I might want to get Sean back on to talk about that at some point actually too. I was thinking
Yeah,
about
definitely,
that.
man.
Because, yeah, so I was texting with them while I was tripping and like, it was pretty cool. And I just felt like that to where with mushrooms, I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody or like, I just want to trip with like 1 or 2 other people or whatever, but that's it. But like, I felt very, very social on acid. Um, I think that's a difference. I don't think it was just like the situation, I don't think it was just like, that's how I felt that day.
Yeah.
I think that it was, that's a difference in the chemicals. I feel like, I
And
need a couple.
that's commonly reported too, though. Like even with
Is it?
microdosing,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
like
that.
like even with
Yeah.
microdosing, people take it, as a almost a substitute to their coffee.
Yeah. 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 Cause the whole time I'm like walking around and I kept saying it. I was with my dogs and I just kept going and walking with them. And I'd be like, oh my God, like you guys, we got to get other people up here with us. Like I kept talking to them. Like I wanted to, talk, but, yeah, it was, and I mean, the weather was perfect. Like there was one kind of bad moment where I started getting like kind of dark, and
Okay.
thinking about like death and the kind of that, we don't have that much time and there's, so much to do and there's not enough time. Like I felt like very rushed because I'm like, I'm eventually going to die at some point and I'm not going to get all this stuff done that I want to do and blah, blah, blah. I started having those thoughts. But then I realized it was like the fucking weather turned. Like there was like a storm blowing in, and it like totally just kind of like switched my mood to where before that I'm like prancing around in the sun,
Yeah.
and then as soon as like it's like dark clouds and wind, I was like, oh fuck, but at least, and I think it was a good dosage because I had enough, awareness to be like, I need to go inside. And then once I was inside and, was able to kind of do inside stuff, then I was like, cool. And then like, I would calm down and then I'd be like, all right, I got to put this phone down and go back outside, and so I think that's, definitely obviously the other difference with mushrooms and acid is the duration, and the length is pretty cool because I feel like you can kind of settle in a little more, it's not as much of a roller coaster as mushrooms, honestly,
Yeah. No, definitely. How did you get through the weather change and all that? Like when you were going down the bad rabbit hole, like how did you end up getting out of that?
Right. So, and this is a big aha moment that I definitely in the afterglow and everything. I came out of it. It's one thing I wrote down and tried to journal uh, and kind of remember and take from it was, to that, like I've been trying to meditate as part of my like daily ritual stuff that we've been doing and talk about on the Discord,
Mm-hmm.
is that my afternoon notification is to say to meditate for 20 minutes. I also do like breathing, and I mean to do like Wim Hof or something like that. Some sort of work on some sort of, focusing breath work, and just sit and think. And so both of those I have set for 20 minutes. And what I've been trying to do is like, if I just stop and put my phone down at the middle of the day and do 20 minutes of one of those things or a mixture of all of them, I'm good with that. And that's a baby step that I'm working on,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously like breathing and stuff like that, like is pretty easy. I always end up kind of doing that. Or I just sit and think, but that just turns into a mess, right? So it's like the
Yeah.
meditation is the part where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do this and it's okay, but I end up, it's a stupid plan because like sitting and thinking and meditating, like if the lines cross, like then you can't be meditating and sitting and thinking. You end up just sitting and thinking, and to not do the mind clearing and focusing that, is needed for meditation. And so like I had this idea, I was looking for music. And so I have these eye shades that are Bluetooth and have headphones in them. And I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to music and put the head shades on. And so I was listening to music and I had my eyes closed, and I'm probably past the peak, but, definitely like right in the middle of the heart of this
Yeah.
thing,
Acid
maybe even,
lingers so much.
yeah. And it might have even been maybe just a couple hours in. I can't remember the time. It was before I smoked weed. I held off smoking weed for as long as I could, just because I didn't want to freak out,
Yeah.
And then so I was listening to music, but it was like everything kind of started to sound scary music wise. And I was like, man, what's the fucking calmest music I got? And I'm going through my Spotify playlist, which, I can barely use a phone at this point too. Like, cause I'm like, kind of all my, adrenaline's ramped up and whatever. And, I had this, guided meditation, from Lena Grace is the person on Spotify. And, she has all these different meditations, and she has this like really calm British voice. And I play these just as like bedtime music or noise or whatever to get my son to sleep, or I used to. I haven't in a while, but I used to. So it's just on my Spotify playlist. And I'm like, well, fuck, I'll do that. Like, and it was just like, yeah, that'll be. I can't imagine being scared by that is what I was thinking, you know? And I was
Yeah.
like, that'll calm me down. And then I'll pick some music or whatever. And so I'm listening to it and I start relaxing and, you know, I was really tense. Like I didn't have the nausea of mushrooms. But there was definitely a body load, like cramping, kind of like a knot in my neck. Like, you know, there was definitely like physical, like just physically uncomfortable. And the anxiety of like kind of freaking out from the weather and starting to think about death and feeling rushed and all this stuff. Like like that made that worse. Like I was even more tense. Like my back was starting to hurt and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And so the meditation I picked on there was for muscle relaxation, like deep muscle relaxation or something like that. And so I put that on and I'm listening to it and I'm following you know, she's saying you know, tense up your toes and relax them, and then you move up your body. You know, that's a pretty common thing with guided meditations, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do everything she says, like, because I was like starting to get lost and not pay attention, but I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this fucking guided meditation legit, like this is what I'm doing, and I was like really focused on it, paying attention, and I did it all, and then they do like the kind of countdown, and dude, I mean, I really think that I was hypnotized and tripping at the same time, because it totally felt like every time she moved to, you know, I moved to a different area of muscle to tighten and relax. It didn't just relax, it like turned off. And then so when she did the countdown, my physical body, not my ego, but just total physical consciousness disappeared. Like I didn't see myself floating above my body, but
Mm-hmm.
I had an out of body experience just because it was not there. Like the only other time I've had anything similar to that has been with a dissociative like nitrous or ketamine. That's a physical, you know, kind of thing that you go through with a dissociative kind of thing is the, you know, uh, disconnection of your consciousness from your body, and I totally had that. Nowhere near an ego death though, because I was like, oh wow, I don't feel my body. Like I could say that to myself, and I could hear her voice. And what was crazy is I remember some of the stuff she said is stuff that's really uh, in the meditation. And I listened to it today. Actually, this morning I woke up and popped it in and put the shades on, and that's how I woke up today. Or like I couldn't sleep. Like I woke up too early, and like I couldn't get back to sleep. And I was like, well, instead of sitting here tossing and turning, I'm gonna meditate, and I put that on. And you know, definitely some of the stuff that she said was the same, but it also took on that fucking weird tripping thing, just like with music and everything, where you're like, oh my God, this is meant for me. They wrote this for me. They get it. They get it. I was like, Lena Grace fucking gets it, man. And I mean, she was saying, I was taking it so personal. She might as well have been, you know, talking about like the draft prospects for the Sabres coming up this summer. Like, I mean, it was so fucking personal, the shit she was saying, that I was like, holy fuck, this is for real, man. Like this is what fucking meditate. This is what everyone's like trying to get, is to access your fucking subconscious. And it went through this thing, and it was just like kind of everything she said to relax and get rid of anxiety. Like fucking just related to everything that was going through my head and freaking me out at the time. And like, she was like, you know, when you look at the big picture, you never have enough time, but you can make time to do anything or something like that. You know, it's just like shit that I was going over and over in these negative thought loops, and this
Yeah.
fucking, you know, meditation, I fucking auditorily hallucinated it, you know, like
Yeah.
to fucking calm me down. And and then and what was weird too, I had the eye shades on, and then another big difference I noticed with LSD and mushrooms is there was no closed eye visuals, like at all. But I was having extremely vivid open eye visuals for probably 3 or 4 hours. And so like that's a kind of flip flopped from the most of my mushroom trips, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I thought that was pretty interesting, but there's a moment where, and this is in the thing where she's like, okay, so we're not saying goodbye to any of the problems. We're just putting them on pause. We have that ability with our mind. We can pause the world. And she was like, and then when you do that, you can visualize and find your truth. And I looked at it today, and it's only like a minute and a half that just there's just this like ambient music going, and she doesn't
Okay.
talk, and then she brings you back out of the meditation. Um, and so, but that minute and a half, because I was listening and doing everything she was saying with my consciousness or my subconsciousness, I was like, okay, I'm going to visualize all the things in my life that I want or don't want, and see how to construct it to make it happen or stop it from happening. And I was able to go through just like fucking 20 different things. It felt like hours
Wow.
of living, and I won't say it's open eye or closed eye visuals, but it was visual in the way a dream is. You know, like if a dream has visuals, you know, I mean, but
Hmm.
it's all like in your heads and in your head and your memories and stuff like that. And that's what this was. You know, I was like, yeah, like rewinding situations in my head and living them, and being like, that's how I get this done. This is how you know, and whatever. And like if I focus on this and that, that's how I'll get to this, and this is how I can do that. And just I was able to do all of that in a minute and a half of Earth time, you know? And so
That's
it's like,
incredible.
right. And so it's like time doesn't exist in our memories and our brain and our dreams, you know? And like we can take as
Yeah.
much time in there as possible. And I've never been able to do that with mushrooms. Like mushrooms have always been just a ride that you're experiencing, you know? Like I've had these like hypothetical situations that are dreams and stuff like that, but I'm still just kind of like witnessing it. It's a vision, you know, to where this is so constructive and, you know, felt like manifesting almost, but it's not like
Yeah.
the shit just happened. It's just that like I totally planned out, you know, how I'm going to stop worrying about this, at least that in a minute and a half, you know.
Dude,
And
what's crazy about it too is like that there was a specific muscle relaxing meditation. Like that, I don't understand how that all lined up for you. You know, that part was not planned whatsoever. And like, I totally get and have experienced the whole this is made for me feeling.
yeah,
And I don't see how you wouldn't be able to, you'd have to acknowledge that thought in that moment.
yeah, I mean it. And like I said, I've listened to it before, though. It wasn't like I was just scrolling through Spotify, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of
But
like
you're like
always,
you were saying though, like your muscles were tense, like LSD
yeah,
has that like vasoconstriction to it all. And
yeah,
then that's one of your options right in front of you.
right, yeah. Yeah, so it's bizarre, and I watched or I listened to a podcast on the way home from New York, the Adventures Through the Mind, and they had a guy talk. It's a really old one, talking about you know this research group that's like mapping human consciousness with LSD. They're doing it at like kind of double the dosage that I took, but still, I get it. I get how it allows you, it's more of a tool than a plant teacher like mushrooms. I feel like I think it's just as mystical, it's just as important, it's just as amazing how it even came to be in this world, at this life. It's just as uh you know it has so much fate and every just as much fate and destiny as mushrooms do, but it's much more a tool for your brain. Like it fucking the ability to do that, to take a minute and a half of time and go through 6 months of therapy, maybe, you know, I don't know. Like
Hmm.
if I took every, now again, I can't remember everything, every moment that there was. It's just bits and pieces because it's so fast, right? But um I, you know, we're going, it's a week later, and I like I my anxiety and stress is so much less. And
Dude, that's awesome.
all these things I was worrying about, I'm just like, fuck it. Like I know how to fucking take care of that, or that doesn't matter or whatever. And there was a big part of it that was like worried about stuff. And I do remember this where like, I was talking about some situation where like, I don't know what it was, but it was like someone criticizing me, I don't know what situation it was, but it was like I was worried about that. And I was picturing this scenario that I was being criticized. And the person criticizing me like froze and digitized and just went like, and just like faded off into noise. And I was like, that's all that is noise. Like it's just noise. Like the stuff that we focus our time on that never gets any better, and we focus our attention on it never gets better. We can't it's just fucking noise, and all you have to do is just ignore it and it goes away. And like I remember that, and that's like a big lesson that I took out of that meditation, was that. And that was how I visualized it in my brain, was just like it just fucking disappeared. Like something that was bothering me so much, I just fucking was like, that's just noise, and it just disappeared. So yeah, I
Powerful.
mean, yeah, for real. And then so I came out of that meditation and was fucking like blissful, dude.
I'm sure.
I mean, it was a world of difference. And by that time, the storm had blown through and whatever, and it was sunny again. And I went outside and I was like walking around, and I was like, hey, or I took a picture and I put it on the Discord, because if anyone's on the Discord, they were kind of following in the Trip Sitter Club. Like I was just kind of live posting, pictures and stuff like that. And I posted a picture and someone was like, that looks like a good place to smoke a joint. And I was like, yeah, it does. and so then I introduced weed to it. And then it was way more intense. And then a lot more confusion came in, but not in a bad, I wasn't stressed out about it, but it was just confusing. And I kept like kind of forgetting what I was doing. And I reached that point where everyone's had this when they're tripping. And if you're not at home and you're out or whatever, where you're like, pockets become such a problem, like what's in what pocket and stuff like that. And you're constantly like, wait, where's that lighter? Fuck, shit, and you're like constantly like, oh, I got to go back and look for that lighter, or, oh, it's in my hand, or whatever, like that kind of shit,
Yeah,
and
that
like
loop.
that. Yeah. The weed definitely ramped that up. For sure.
And that I'd stay away from weed, while I'm still tripping like that, for that reason, because I've experienced that, and you can honestly go dark pretty quick, like you just keep going through the loop and the loop and the loop. And unless you handle it, like it sounded like you handled it well, unless you do that, like it can go on for a long time, or what feels like a long time, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, I kept bringing myself back to like, go walk in the woods, like I kept doing that. I would be like, what was I going to do? What, oh, wait, no. Wait, should I go get my headphones? Oh, wait, I had to plug them in. They were charging. I got to go get that. And then I would go in the house and then end up like, wait, no, maybe I should do nitrous. And then I'd like have like I'd be walking around with like the charger for my headphones, and then like looking for other things. I'd be like, what's this fucking charger for? And then be like, oh, wait, that's right. I got to plug my headphones. And it was like that kind of shit for like maybe an hour after I smoked, like where I'm like wandering around with like stuff in my hands going like, what was I going to do? Why do I have that? And whatever. And like, that was another thing where I was like, man, I wish I was tripping with someone else that could be like, fuck, like, dude, go plug your headphones in. Let's go over here, or whatever. Like,
let's go to the woods.
Yeah. And so, I kept doing that, and it was really such a like microcosm for like my life too, where it's like that's what happens with a lot of people, like not tripping, just like our lives in general. Like we get so scattered, and when I was talking about people not returning emails and stuff like that, it's because like you get the email, you read it, and you're like, yeah, I'll write them back, I'll write there, or whatever, and like you never do, and then you just you go on to the next thing and the next thing, and like unless you're really focused on accomplishing something, like it's so easy now with how immediate everything is to just fucking everything just gets scattered to the wind, and everything wants your attention. And, the truly successful people in life are the ones that focus their attention on tasks that they want to complete, and, and so it's like I wasn't having a successful trip until I was like, okay, I'm going in the woods. That's the mission right now. I don't need
Yeah.
anything in my pocket. Let's fucking go, dogs, and that's what we were doing. And I always had in my head, like, I was like, I'm mushroom hunting, like, yeah, I'm going to find mushrooms, like, yeah, it's going to be magical or whatever. And like, I would love to see a video of what my mushroom hunting looked like, because I'm just wandering around the woods, like staring up at the trees and stuff. But there was another cool moment where, and the visuals were very, like, I would say for a good 3 or 4 hours, and definitely ramped up when I did weed and definitely when I did nitrous. Everything had like this glow or vibration to it that was like, I mean, I guess like almost looked like the movie, is it 300 or 500 or what?
The one with like the Rome, like
Yeah, yeah, or Troy or whatever it was.
yeah.
With how everything's
Sparta.
like, yeah, Sparta, yeah, where it's like, CGI kind of glowing, maybe fairy like Lord of the Rings, like everything looked like that, like, and I couldn't make it stop, and like I was trying to watch a movie at one point, and like I was watching Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny. I watched that whole thing, and like it was fucking like their hair was like blowing in the wind the whole time. Like it was weird, dude. It was really weird. I looked at my dogs several times, and like they were like looking at me, and then like CGI as fuck, it would be like they would smile at me, like, and I thought they were gonna start talking to me, honestly, because it was just like their lips would just like curl up, like here, and I was like, oh my god. And so I'm walking around the woods like that, right? And like I wasn't scared at this one moment. I wasn't scared because like the wind was blowing a lot, and there was this tree that was creaking, like, and you could hear it like even before you got in the woods. And I was like, I'm gonna check that out, which is stupid as fuck. Like if I wasn't tripping, I would have been like, I gotta stay away from that dead sounding tree that's gonna fall. But so I'm like walking, and then I haven't walked in the like this part of our woods that much, because it's kind of overgrown, but it was early enough in the season that you could walk around in there pretty easy now. And there's this giant old black cherry tree in there that is barely still alive. Like most of its big, huge limbs are dead, but there was still some growth on it. And I mean, it's the oldest tree in the woods there. Like it was obviously, and it's on a big hill. And I think it was just whenever they cleared all the trees there, like that one they couldn't take down for whatever reason, so it's just sitting there. And I was like, the creaking was like, it was scaring the dogs, like they were like looking up, but it was calling me, like I was like, holy shit, dude, this tree's fucking talking to me. And so like I went and I like put my hands on this tree and was like, just fucking, I felt like it's wisdom. I don't know how to explain it other than that. Like I felt like it's like age and experience and wisdom, and I felt that it appreciated me and knew that like it has seen a lot of things come and go on that land, and it knows that I'm like the next like caretaker of the land, and it approves of me. Like that's awesome. That's the fucking message I got from it, man. And I mean, a lot of that's in my head, and I feel that way anyway, like
yeah,
or whatever. But it was a pretty cool fucking experience that I've never experienced with most of my psychedelics, either being just like walking around a college town with a bunch of idiots, or hanging out at a campfire talking, or hanging out in my basement when my family's asleep. It was like, It was awesome to have that kind of solitary wilderness experience and like communing with nature. Like it sounds very stereotypical, but to actually experience it, like it's fucking pretty awesome, like, and I think that was almost just as therapeutic as the meditation experience.
Oh, I'm sure. And just the way you painted the picture of where the tree was sounds amazing, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I texted my friends when I got back. I was like, well, my mushroom hunting trip was a bust, but I communed with a tree with an ancient black cherry tree in the woods.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You said that so you said you tried the meditation this morning, the same one.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did it compare?
Well, it was mainly like, yeah, there's definitely things I remember her saying, and was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But there was
Did like
definitely,
trigger any memories from the moment?
well, no. Well, I guess I was like, oh, okay, this is where I was thinking about this. This is why I went down that path. Like I was kind of analyzing what she was saying and not really meditating. But the biggest difference was I noticed that the one period where she wasn't talking was only a minute and a half on the
Yeah.
track. And I was like, holy fuck, like that was like a fucking, that was a forever. Like I was like, that was like a deep, intense fucking, you know, mental
Moment.
fucking, yeah, like rewind, fast forward, edit, of brain circuitry. And it only happened in a minute and a half. Like I was like, that's fucking timelessness. That's the timelessness that I seek with psychedelics.
Yeah,
Um,
and you got there.
yeah, and that's and that's the other thing. Like one of the biggest things I took from it is like, okay, that's what I have to do with my ritual every day. Is not sit there and just fucking wing it. And I'm like, well, I got my eyes closed and I'm not talking and I haven't looked at my phone in 20 minutes. So that's meditation, like, no, I don't know how to do this shit yet. It's like with playing guitar or yoga or, whatever, you need a guide, you need a teacher, at least at first, until you get the skills down.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm like, okay, so that's what I'm going to do is a guided meditation every day. And I'll either I'm probably gonna stick with this lady. She has a whole bunch on Spotify. I might try some others. I don't know, but I need to do those that are like talking and take them seriously and listen to those and not listen to my fucking brain and shut everything down and work on focus. And
Yeah.
and just have like, I try to pick my goals for like the week or the day or whatever in the morning when I wake up. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think you got to get kind of your feel of the day first. And then in the middle of the day, be like, all right, let's focus and see what do I want to do today? What do I want to do this week? What do I want to do this year? Um, and really use meditation to do that. And I think that's my plan coming out of it, and if that's the only thing I take from that whole fucking trip, other than it was just relaxing to be up there, that's great. I think that'll make
Yeah.
a pretty lasting impact on me.
The hardest thing for me in guided meditation, which we talked a little bit about, via text, is like the whole taking it seriously thing, which
Yeah.
is what you mentioned, and the focus part of it, where I have a hard time when I'm listening to a British accent. It's just like the stereotypical meditation track. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
my brain is like, oh, this again, or like, oh, of course, this is what it's like, and then it'll just try to fight that, and
Yeah.
I gotta I gotta do better at honing in the focus, which is what you mentioned. And for me personally, like yoga is uh, probably the best for me since there's that physical exertion. So it's hard for your mind to wander from what you're doing at, the task at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, ideally, I want to get both a session of both
Absolutely.
in a day. But I mean, it's like everything, man. Like there's many paths to the truth, and
Yeah.
and like I think psychedelics appeal because they're the easy way, like we've said, but they also show you like this is what you're aiming for, um, that like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
That's,
get there, with with anything, like and the goal of, like Dr. Fadiman said, the goal of the psychonaut is to need less and less every time, and so like that's kind of where I'm at is like, well, and as far as like fighting my brain saying that the meditation is cheesy, it's easier for me to fight that part than to fight my brain going, full on default mode network trying to make up for the fact I'm not doing anything, like
yeah.
yeah. So, but
No, definitely, man. That's the key though, is sometimes the psychedelic is just that reminder of where you're trying to get to, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And you already have, even maybe without knowing, the knowledge of how and what to do to get back there. But you get so scattered and you get so distracted to the point that you forget the goal. You forget the end line that should be an everyday type of thing.
Yeah.
And when you dive into those waters again, you get the reminder, and you get the reminder is the feeling, and it gives you something else to chase after other than the daily chase of the rat race, the money, the whatever, the sometimes superficial goals. It melts all that away.
Yeah.
So like you said, though, if, worst case scenario, that's all you got out of it. And that is an amazing lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned, though, that you were thinking about taking mushrooms the day of right before leaving, right? Did you second guess that, or what were you thinking about that?
Yeah, it's just too soon,
Too much. Yeah,
too much. There was so much to unpack, and like just trying to grasp some of the ideas and concepts that I had, like it was like mushrooms isn't going to help me grab it. It's going to just confuse me, and
throw you back out there.
Yeah, and possibly have a bad time and like whatever. I just
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to, I guess I skipped over kind of the nuts and bolts of taking it. And as I come up with, I'm going to do a video too, to try to make a succinct like thing. Cause I'm still kind of fucking integrating and, trying to piece together stuff. Like, it's good to talk and to bounce stuff off of you, but, I do want to like kind of frame it up as a whole statement. But so I took I was worried about the anxiety. I never had anxiety with LSD before, but I'm like, man, it's been 13 years. I have a lot more anxiety just base level now than I did 13 years ago and before that. So I took Phenibut ahead of time, a couple hours ahead of time. Like I woke up, took Phenibut, and then like after I kind of was feeling good and ready to take it from that's, it was probably about 1 o'clock or so. And then that's when I took the acid. And I was worried about like an anxious, nervous come up. So I spaced out, I kind of was like researching, timing of LSD doses and I spaced it out to where I took 50 micrograms. And for anyone who hasn't been following, all of my videos and stuff like that, when I was talking about the microdosing for LSD, I took a 10 strip that is believed to be 1,000 micrograms and put that in 100 milliliters of distilled water. And this is called the volumetric method. And so I don't have it lab tested to know. I used a test kit. I know it is actually LSD, but I don't know what the actual micrograms are. But after my friends took it and I took it, I believe that it is actually what what I thought. But I took, 5 milliliters, which would be 50 micrograms. And then about a half hour, 20 minutes, half hour later, I took another 50 micrograms. And this is why I think like maybe next time I'll stick with the 100, because I was feeling really good about a half hour after taking the second dose. And then I was like, oh man, when that second dose starts kicking in here in a little bit, like this will be pretty good. But I was like, I had been waffling back and forth, and I was like, you know what? I had at first in my head to take 150 mics, just because like, wherever you look at the dosage range, like medium dosage starts at 150. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start with the low end of a medium dose. Like I'm not trying to have a heroic dose here or anything. So I'm just like, but I definitely want to like have more than just a party. I want to like have some sort of lasting, profound change from this. So that's why I was like, all right, take the fucking other 50, And so over the course of an hour to, an hour and a half, I took 150. And after I took the third dose, I was like, all right, I better I'm starting to get kind of confused here. Like I want to go outside because I knew I would just start fidgeting with stuff in the house. And I was like, let's just walk it off. Here, walk it on, basically.
Yeah.
I like to do that with trips. And so I just went for a walk or actually I had a golf cart. So I'm driving this little golf cart that we can drive around in the woods and stuff like that. And I drove that down to this pond and then walked around. And it's maybe about 10 minutes after I took the third dose, I started getting real tense, my muscles and stuff. I was like, oh shit. The third dose hasn't even kicked in yet, but I'm kind of at that peak, almost uncomfortable kind of, you feel the fucking, tingles coming on. And you're like, oh man, I was like, maybe I should have stuck with that. But then I didn't really dwell on that. I didn't want to get into a negative thought loop of that. I was like, man, buy the ticket, take the ride. You took it. Let's just fucking roll, man. And so I didn't really wig out, but looking back, I'm like, I think I would have been good without that third dose. But I think the Phenibut helped with that too. It helped kind of I was ready. I was excited, I was chill.
How much Phenibut did you take?
Not that much. 2 000 capsules.
Oh, okay.
So
that's probably a gram.
I think it's 500.
500. Okay. 500 milligrams.
Yeah. Or no, you know what? I didn't take capsules. I took whatever is on. I don't have my tub of it here, but it has the dosage on there, which is lower than what people online say to take. And it was 1 scoop that they have, and that's some sort of measured scoop. And I believe it's 500 milligrams.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's what I did. Yeah. And I think
that's the lower end of the Phenibut scale, but it definitely that's what I take too whenever I take it, and it works just as well.
If I'm taking it without a psychedelic, I take more. But everyone, reading people's reports of Phenibut with LSD, everyone's go low on the Phenibut. You don't need more. So that's what I did. I also towards the end took kratom.
Oh, nice.
And that was a really good, I think that's one reason I kind of fell asleep later and I wasn't all geeked out, I think that was a really good end to the trip. Cause I know we've talked about taking it beforehand, but honestly, I think it was a good tail end.
Yeah, no, I could see that. How much did you end up taking of that?
3 caps of gold Mangda.
Oh, nice, dude.
Yeah. And it was it kind of kicked it back in. I was ready to watch a movie and laughing and it was a good little dopamine bump.
Yeah.
I like the timing of that. I don't know what made me think about it, but I was like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna do that, and
yeah. That was 5 hours in, something along that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I took CBD beforehand too.
Oh yeah. You mentioned that.
And I took it in the middle as well. And I think that goes good. I need to make that part of my thing with mushrooms too.
You think it calms the nerves?
Yeah, it really does, man. And the stomach too. I think it it stops a lot of that nervous nausea,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. You're figuring it all out. What the best practices are for yourself,
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. And so, well, and I was talking afterwards the next day. I have a friend who I hope to have her on the podcast and maybe she will. But she is a shaman and medium kind of, and she's,
wow, yeah.
She's going to start her own business or starting her own business. And, so I'd like to have her on to kind of advertise that, but also talk to her because, she's more she's just into the natural world and spirit world and stuff like that. But she's not a shaman that used substances at all. More kind of just, well, I don't know. I haven't talked to her that much, but I do know, her first experience with mushrooms was a month ago. And
oh, okay.
And then she actually did it the same night that I was tripping. They started at as I was coming down. her and her husband were doing them, and they live up there. And so her first trip was like a 3 gram, and she was like taken over by her uh, true self. And like, I mean, it's a crazy story, like she
Yeah.
definitely, when you're a medium and you're already kind of half in that world, like mushrooms definitely take you to a higher realm than most people, with lower dosages as well, and
Yeah, I'm sure.
so like it was cool to talk to her about that. But she did a lower trip, and so they were on their way to a cookout, so they couldn't hang out too long. But like, they came over, and I was just kind of, they had never been to my place, so I was showing them around. But she was obviously like, wanted to cut right to the chase, and was like, so what happens when you take mushrooms? What do you see? Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, yeah, let's not beat around the bush. So we were talking about psychedelics and everything. And, she said, she was like, have you ever had like a guide, like more than a sitter when you've been doing it? I'm like, no. And she's like, I mean, you really should. Like, I think you're like almost getting there, but you're kind of stuck in the third dimension, and like your consciousness isn't going to the other dimension. And she's like, I think a guide could help you and push you over the edge, So I think next time, that I go up there to trip, like I'm gonna like hire her to come be my guide, So
That'd be awesome.
that was another realization I had from it, is like a sitter would be good to keep me from fucking goofing off, or whatever.
Yeah.
But to actually like be real constructive with it, like, because I was telling her how I take all the like anti-anxiety stuff, and she's like, the anxiety is like, that's kind of almost the key too. That's what you ride it into the experience, and she's like, I threw up too, like it's, the nausea and stuff like that. And I was telling her, yeah, like, I've heard like with ayahuasca, because I don't think she knows much about ayahuasca. And I told her that, like they say that the ayahuasca shamans say that when you're throwing up, you're getting rid of the negative energy, so that the rest of the time you can focus on the positive. And she was like, yeah, I think that's exactly what happened to me. And I would say that's very true, so she's right, where like, if you're doing it by yourself, you need to handle your anxiety, like, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
you got to take what you got to take to do that. I don't recommend, the Xanax Valium route unless it's like an emergency, but Phenibut, I don't think is a trip killer. Like, it may stop you from like transcending or whatever, but it also stops you from like even having the freak out in the first place. Um,
Yeah.
and I think like it's all brain chemistry, and like having some sort of anti-anxiety chemical in that party will help kind of ensure you have a good trip, and CBD the same way. So I when I'm by myself, that's definitely going to be part of my routine is the Phenibut and CBD. Um, but I do need to try without, but with her as a guide or someone else as a guide, like I think
That's
that's,
awesome. You have that connection.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she's well, and it's, the whole thing's pretty crazy. Like, um, I hope we have her on and I can go into it more. But like, um, she's married to a cousin of a friend from a long time ago that we are hooked up through cryptocurrency, and it's just kind of like a kind of bizarre
Wow.
thing that we're you know uh, friends just from that, and like I'm actually better friends and have more in common with them than our common uh, acquaintance, or well, his cousin. But it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
fuck yeah, man. Like I'm open to that. It's just like with this channel and like the Discord server and stuff like that. I'm open to be friends with anybody, like, I mean, it's like, I don't have to be like, what high school did you go to, or whatever. Like, I mean, it's like, that's what happens in life, like, um, you try to hang on to the friends that you can, but you have to be open to making as many friends as possible. And that's definitely one with, the interest I have in spirituality and psychedelics and consciousness and stuff like that. Like, to have someone like that come into your life as a real friend that, um, that's, yeah, I have to take advantage of that, so
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, that's I can't imagine what it would be like to have like a guide
Yeah.
and somebody that could map out the situation for you.
Yeah.
Like that has to be incredible.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was another thing that came out of it.
Sounds like an overall just really good thing, other than that one little blip. But that doesn't sound like anything compared to the positive that came out of.
Yeah. And I mean, I really, really grew from that experience too, and, especially after I smoked weed, the madness that I was talking about, it like really made me kind of understand, well, two things. One, it made me understand mental illness yeah, a little better, that
Mm-hmm.
like, um, that loss of reality is really just your consciousness is like kind of pinballing around and can't like find what it's supposed to be focusing on, and your brain is capable of making, just like I experienced in that minute and a half, your brain is capable of making any sort of fucking reality for you, for your perspective, and
Yeah.
so like that's what mental illness is like your brain is not working right and it's making a reality that is not the consensus reality, and there's different varying levels of that, to extreme to mild. And you could label that as depression. Someone is making, there's this reality of like everything fucking sucks. There's no point. And that's what that person's reality is when that's not the consensus reality, like, and for like, there can be medical ways to fix that or just perspective shifts, but like that's the mental illness that is depression, is like this dark view, a dark perspective of your life, but that is not the reality. The reality is there's just as much dark as there is light, and when you're depressed, you're focusing on the dark, um
Yeah.
and it's not always the case, but like a lot of people that have like a really fucking tough time with life, and like you could look at their life and be like, man, how the fuck does he make it through that? That fucking sucks. Those people aren't usually the ones that are depressed. The ones that are depressed are the ones that like are bored almost,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like and just are stuck and upset with themselves and whatever, and then they just have this negative reality that they're stuck in. And you know like it just made me kind of realize that about myself when I go through ups and downs. Is like, man, I'm just
Yep.
focusing on the fucking. There's a dichotomy to everything in life, and I'm focusing on one side, And you can get just as lost and delusional and make bad decisions and be, manic when like you're only focusing on the positive and just being like, oh, this is great. It's like you have to walk that middle path. You have to have that understanding that like it's not always going to be great, or it's not always going to be terrible, and it's not always going to be great, but this too shall pass, and like I just had kind of that moment of coming out of like this, well, especially with the meditation, coming out of this like very frustrated with my life and all this, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to get everything done, but whatever, and like everything just kind of moved along.
Yeah. You got both sides in a matter of like a half hour.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why the whole thing was like a microcosm of like my life. And like I saw like the madness that can be, and the times where I'm very frustrated that like nothing's working out. I'm like, well, I'm not focusing on any one thing. I have so many fucking half done projects and stuff like that. And I think at some level, like even people that are like schizophrenic and stuff like that, like I think that's kind of how their life feels, is like they're trying to like have enlightenment, and then they have moments where they're nihilistic, and then they have moments where they're reaching out for help, but then there have moments where they're pushing people away, and it's just this kind of like always going on, never able to like grasp which is the reality to focus on. And like I think I had this idea because I was thinking about Aldous Huxley, because I started thinking about like, oh man, because he died, he had his wife inject him with LSD like as he died. Like, have we talked about that?
I know about it, but I don't think we've ever talked about it. So
Oh, okay.
definitely preface that.
Yeah. So Aldous Huxley, when he was on his deathbed, couldn't talk. I think he had maybe throat cancer. I'm not sure, but he couldn't talk, and he wrote a note to his wife, and oh man, I wish I knew the dosage, but it was like 125 micrograms intramuscular, and just wrote that down. And she injected him with LSD and he died. And it was actually, he died at the same time as JFK.
Whoa.
Yeah. uh, but, but anyway, so I was thinking about that and I was like, oh man, like after having such a complete life and writing such great stuff, like to go out this way with your brain firing this perfectly, like that would be something, you know, and I'm thinking about that. And so, but then I was thinking about Aldous Huxley and I was thinking about his idea of the reducing valve and his, idea that, all of the energy and the electromagnetic spectrum or whatever, is bombarding us, and that's what reality is. But our brain boils it all down to what is biologically necessary, and that psychedelics turn that filter off or open it up, and we see more of what reality is. And I always thought that was a cool idea, but I think like I was thinking about that, and with mental illness and stuff like that, and I was having this thought that the the valve isn't really like an extra, it's not stopping anything externally. It's a valve in our brain that like our brain naturally is just like boop, 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 just shooting off ideas and visions and dreams and voices and all of these things. But then it has some sort of valve or calculator in it that's like, this is the only shit that you need to know. This is what's going to make you breathe, eat, sleep, and fuck, and that's all you really need, and that's what our valve in our brain is doing, is stopping everything else that it's capable of and that is going on in the background. And that's our subconscious. That's our shadow. That's our, sub ego or super ego. That's all these things are just levels of the electronic activity in our brain, and we have this valve that kind of condenses that down to what we need. And psychedelics open that valve or whatever, but also all the different varying levels of mental illness or mental conditions all involve this valve being like faulty in some way or another, and so there is a little bit of madness. Like you do go crazy for a bit with psychedelics. It's just that it's a relatively short time, depending on the drug, that it eventually goes back and possibly even, heals or alters that valve to work better or whatever, or you can have more control of it or whatever it may be. That's what I was thinking, is that like, even if there's an outside like intelligence and spirit with psychedelics, the main work is in your brain. The main reality is in your brain,
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big realization, aha moment that I had that like stuck with me. And I think that's actually what I was trying when I tried to make a video while I was tripping that will never see the light of day. I think that's what I was trying to get out. But I don't know.
So, sorry, I'm just trying to like digest it.
Oh yeah.
So you're saying that that faucet, but what about like the collective existence? You know what I mean? Like there has to be like almost like a collective faucet that everybody has. Or am I not following your thought pattern?
I think there's a standard calibration to that faucet. Let's put it that way,
Okay.
But I can still, but that doesn't explain. I still believe in like, I started to try to understand simulation theory more because of it, because it's like, we're all kind of running this program, and we are AI. We talk about, when AI takes over, no, we're fucking AI, like our common ancestor is a fucking bacteria, or like a single cell organism that just fucking doesn't have any sort of thoughts or senses at all, other than just live and reproduce. And so, we've developed to this point that we've left the planet. That's artificial intelligence. Like we created that ourselves. Like we created that intelligence. And, so yeah, like I could see that being simulation theory. You know, I know there's a lot of other levels to simulation theory, but that simulation, that program is created by this valve in our brain being calibrated mostly the same for everybody. You know,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and Terrence McKenna, like I might be horribly paraphrasing this, but from what I can recall, he has a statement that everyone is schizophrenic. It's just the reality you kind of want to believe in.
Right. Yeah. You know, and so everyone has the same madness in their head. You
Yeah.
know, it's just some it's for a faulty valve, and some it's because they took a drug or took too many drugs or had too much trauma in their life that damaged the valve. You know, I don't know. I mean, it's I don't have a lot of fact to back that up. It was just this like realization that I've like didn't even like. It's like I remembered that almost too. Like that was one.
That's trippy.
Another difference, right, in the LSD and mushrooms that I think was a profound difference was mushrooms. I feel like I'm being shown something or told something, whether that's from myself or a external force. I don't know. I've felt both, and I could get behind both theories. But with LSD, it felt like I was remembering all the realizations. You know, and unfortunately I've forgot almost all of them, you know, but in the moment that's exactly what it felt like, was like, oh my God, of course that's what this is, you know.
Yeah.
I had some grand fucking thing about cryptocurrency and simulation theory, and I can't remember it now, and I sent a message out to Rich on the podcast, because I know like he's right
on the Discord
or yeah on the Discord, and you know, I know he's writing a book about simulation theory and really has a cool, you know, kind of grasp of that. That's I sent him a message, and I'm kind of chewing on some of the stuff he said, because like I had this grand vision that I that's all I know. It was simulation theory and cryptocurrency, and I don't know, like, and maybe that's because that was something I wasn't remembering. It was something I was like kind of like, because it's new or whatever, it's like working its way towards that, and I was like, oh, this is where it's going. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely a feeling of remembering stuff that I had forgotten, or not, like kind of. There was a big moment where I was like remembering all of these fucking like advice that, you know, people through this channel and podcasts have given me about their own psychedelic, like what they tell themselves and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, everybody gets it. And they've been giving me a clue of like how all this fits together, how life fits together, how psychedelics fit together. Like they've all given me these clues, and I like put it together, and then it's like, you know, it's not there anymore. Like, I don't know. But I was like, how was I not paying attention? Everyone's giving me the fucking answers. I just had to piece it together, you know, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't last. That's the unfortunate thing. But knowing you were in that state is at least comforting, you know?
Yeah. And like we touched on earlier, there's alternatives to taking drugs that can get you there, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about this faucet, you know, is that there are those alternatives without diving deep in, you know, a faucet opening experience. You can do it with meditation, yoga, diet, whatever, fasting.
Yeah
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely epic, man. I mean, I know people, you know, I read about like dosages that people like to do, and you know, people are definitely seem to be that you have to take, you know, at least the Albert Hoffman dosage of 250 mics. I'm glad I didn't do that. I had thought about that for a minute. That
could have been bad.
Yeah. I mean, I would do it with a sitter, but no, not by myself in being isolated like that. Like no, that wouldn't have been good. And so like, I would have liked to have a little more otherworldly, like, visuals, but the alteration to everything, the like the vibe that was going on was fucking pretty nuts. Like it wasn't, other than the dog smiling, I didn't see anything that wasn't there, you know? The only thing that I saw that possibly wasn't there, well, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever seen, there's kind of, I don't know if you want to call it conspiracy theory or just like these monster hunter type of people that think that there's some sort of flying insect. I think they call them rails that exist around the openings of caves, and their evidence. And I think this has been kind of debunked once there was very good digital high definition cameras, but like on older videos and stuff, when people would be doing filming like cave divers and spelunkers and stuff like that, there's these like flying insects that like fly by, like, and they just look like you could barely see it unless you slow the film down. And you know, I don't know what they are. I didn't follow up on it, but I do remember seeing some sort of documentary or show where they were talking about it. And there's these people, the same kind of people that, you know, go after chemtrails and stuff like that, and like, you know, kind of research all this footage and stuff like that. There, I saw stuff like that. There was like, and they might have been bugs, I don't know, but like I saw stuff kind of like flying around. You know, I think at one point I went through a whole fucking case of nitrous too, like with how long that trip was, like 24 fucking shots of it, you know. And I had done one, and I was like sitting in the grass, like around this pond. And I remember saying to my dogs, I was like, man, do you guys see all these fairies? And so like I was calling them fairies, but there was definitely something floating around, but it wasn't, it never took any form or anything, you know? And
yeah,
it totally could have been mosquitoes and flies and whatever, you know. I mean, I was outside, there's bugs everywhere, you know. So but yeah, everything had this vibration. Like I could see every piece of grass moving. I could see the trees. The trees were, it was really windy. They were blowing, but I mean, it looked like they were breathing, and like I could feel, you know, just one with the earth. Like, I mean, it was aside from all the life things, like the visceral experience was very like nature bonding, you know.
mm-hmm.
And it really reaffirmed like my goal, you know, if it's a 10, 15, 20-year goal, whatever, is to, you know, have that place available as like a psychedelic nature therapy retreat. Like if someone, I was thinking that, you know, afterwards, like the next day in the afterglow, I'm like, man, I really wish I can give this experience to at least one fucking like somebody that's just never lived outside the city, and like, you know, I mean someone like, you know, you, I guess, you know, that's
definitely.
just like, you know, you live in down Chicago, like you live in such a like different world from what I'm used to. Like, I realize that I'm lucky to have access to this property and woods and stuff like that. Like, you know, people that live in the city, like, I mean, you have to go to like a public park to experience that, you know, and like it's not the kind of place you want to wander around on a head full of acid, you know.
Definitely not.
Right, you know. So, but it's like something, well, shit,
like, man, we gotta will this into existence, man. I'll be your first taker.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. And you know,
and you got your shaman to partner with.
Yeah. You never know how that'll work out, but yeah, you know, that was just one thing. Like and to bring it back to like, you know, I felt very social and like wanted community and stuff like that. And, you know, it's great to have the phone and, you know, texting and Discord and, you know, all that stuff to be able to do that. But I was thinking that I'm like, man, I need to like provide this experience to other people, you know, that, it's so fucking powerful, man. And like, if more people had that experience, like how could there ever be a fucking political argument about conservation? You know, like if fucking Trump went and communed with a big ancient black cherry tree in my backyard, like I'm pretty sure like he would kind of reverse some of the, you know, like environment,
yeah,
you know, all that stuff would probably take a front seat compared to other issues, and yeah, man, I don't know. That was a really watershed trip for me, man, for sure. And I've had a lot of afterglow, and like I said, I'm still integrating, and like trying to figure out if I can remember any of the other shit, but
And dude, that stuff comes with like potentially years.
oh,
You
well,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
I mean, there was stuff from I learned on this trip, in May, that was a lesson that I learned but didn't figure out from my trip in January. Like
yeah.
it even takes like the next trip. You're like, that's right. And that's a beautiful and unfortunate thing about like the tolerance with psychedelics and not being able to like go back in the next day. Like they kind of have that like kind of safety on them where they're like, nah, no, sit and fucking think about this, dude.
Yeah.
But oh well, and to take a hard turn.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about that. Like I said, I'll do a video and kind of sum up the whole experience. I just gotta kind of frame it how I want to get everything out. But I wanted to talk to you, man, about fucking Illinois and on the verge of legal weed. How'd that all fucking shape up? That kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Dude, I know it. So this guy that is our governor, Pritzker, he's like this billionaire, just like all the politicians, overly wealthy. He has a ton of parks around Chicago named after him, libraries named after him, that he funds. And when he was running, it's him versus this Republican who's been in there for 4 years or whatever their term is for state government. And I thought, one of his platform, like one of the biggest things on his platform was the legalization of marijuana recreationally. And I thought it was just bullshit. Like the crime and politics in Chicago runs so deep.
Yeah.
That you don't take anything for anything. It's a show me type of situation where I'll believe it when I see it. And it's been probably, I don't know what time the elections were. I probably should, but it's been 4 or 5 months maybe since he's been elected, and it's happening, and it's impressive because it's been a while since we've had somebody in that position that's actually done something with their time.
Yeah.
And it's weird that it's a billionaire that's choosing to do it, but the money coming in will make him look amazing, obviously. And he also legalized, or he has the bill to sign, legalize sports gambling. So that's another huge thing that will, make him look amazing with the amount of money that both of those will bring in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's weird. Like I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and I don't know how much is going to change. The paranoia that can set in, when you're smoking and you're like, oh, is that the cops type paranoia? You kind of learn to deal with that after, the years of smoking. But I do think just it's a freedom thing. It's making you feel more free.
Right. Yeah.
And that is where it's kind of like there's no limits to that feeling. So you don't know where that feeling can even take you. So I don't know yet because it's not here yet, but it's going to happen at this point. And that's January 1st of 2020. So it's exciting, man. The prices I mentioned on the Discord channel, the prices are just stupid.
Yeah.
Medical here is 65 an eighth, which, good luck.
Yeah.
But it is cool, for somebody like me that, I've had mental, anxiety, I guess you could say, or like depression episodes or stuff like that. It's cool that you could go and you don't have to have a terminal illness and go ask the bud tender or ask the manager of the place, like, hey, I want to feel this, this, and that, or I'm dealing with this, this, and that. Give me something that's going to help me deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not just buying the 10 sack off the street or off your local dealer and it's just a Sharpie Ziploc bag with the name, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you don't even know if that's the right name, and you're Googling it, and that's too much, So to have that peace of mind is definitely going to be something that's special, and it comes with that special price.
yeah. Well, I mean, well, and I think, isn't it the way in Colorado where medical is cheaper than recreational? So like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm sure Illinois will be that way too, which is kind of ridiculous. Like that's how they justify it. They're like, oh, but it's medicine, so we shouldn't charge as much. And it's like, wait, hold up, you don't fucking think that for regular medicine? Like nobody, nobody,
Yeah.
like other than generics, like medicine's fucking expensive as shit, and nobody like even thinks about limiting the the pharmaceutical kind of
Of course not.
profit model. But then with weed, like as we're building this new infrastructure, then it's like, oh, but the medical should be cheaper. And it's like, what? Why? And it's still ridiculously expensive, which just lets you make the recreational that much more expensive so that you can, kind of, screw over tourists that come in or whatever, like
Yeah.
it's just kind of weird how that's all going.
Well, I think for it though, I think what the difference in the bill for medical and recreational, the only major difference that I was seeing was medical patients can grow, recreational cannot. But
Yeah.
it's like good luck.
Well, yeah, right. I know. And that's a good, kind of offset. But regardless, the price, once I am able to have recreational cannabis, I uh probably will not support the industry other than for like really cool edibles or oils or products, right?
Innovations, yeah.
Right. But for bud, like I will always buy that on the black market. Like cuz and that's the cool thing is it'll make the black market cheaper like it already has. Even here in Ohio where it's not legal, like weed is super fucking cheap now compared to when like I was, younger. Like and
Yeah, yeah.
it's still illegal, but because it's everywhere, because it's Ohio is surrounded by legal states, it's so cheap because it's just flooded it. And so like that'll happen in Illinois too. So all you gotta do is buy the legal container and just keep your weed in that, or whatever. So like I think the big thing, and you touched on it, is the freedom,
Hmm.
and
Well, and part of this bill too is everybody that has charges. I don't know the specifics, but I do know that everyone that has charges of 30 grams or below, I think, is getting pardoned, or something along those lines,
yeah,
where
that's great.
they're all being forgiven for that, which is that's progression.
Yeah, that really is. I mean, because it's this fucking, I've heard it called a failed experiment, but it's like it's not even an experiment. It's just like a fucking shitty like uh you know forfeiture of our rights. That like
Yeah,
we're like, okay,
that
that
we had no control
we
over,
had no
really.
control. I mean we were born into it, but it's like
Yeah, yeah,
people at the time should have been like, fuck you guys, it's a goddamn plant, but I mean they're so much more manipulated by racism and just propaganda and stuff like that I guess everyone was like cool and whatever. And it wasn't like it was like, you didn't get to vote on it. It was just fucking the politicians did it, and people were like, all right, like I'm cool with that, I guess.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna the cool thing about being in Chicago while all this is going on is the city is going to become such a bigger attraction,
Oh yeah,
which is crazy to say because it's already such a big attraction.
yeah,
But you have all the museums, you have the art exhibits, you have everything that a stoner would want to go see,
yeah,
and now you got the weed.
yeah.
So,
Hey,
and like that's cool. That's cool to me.
I've never been to Chicago other than driving through, and I should, but I just never felt like it because like I said, I don't like big cities and stuff like that. But it's like I'm sure it's
Hmm.
fucking gonna go now, like that's
Yeah, exactly.
like I don't know, yeah. But I think another great thing, and like you said, the paranoia, is like, and this goes for everywhere. I really feel that the illicit nature of cannabis has been completely exploited. And one of the reasons it's still illegal, especially federally, is because of it's a excuse to be profiled, whether that's racially or class or
Yeah.
just, they're like, that guy's got a fucking bunch of Grateful Dead bears on his Volkswagen van. Let's fucking search his van, and like, if we don't find anything, we'll just say, hey, we smelled weed, and that's okay. Everyone's like, oh, okay, or whatever, like, I think we talked about that in the last podcast, but like, that's
Yep.
that's a great thing to like, have off your back, that like,
Yeah. Well, and I really think, yeah, I guess that's true. You get stopped and they smell something. You're like, yeah, I have it. It's in the back seat. You can look at it.
yeah, yeah,
But I do think though, the reason why it still is federally the way it is largely due to the age of the people making these laws. Like, which is the no-brainer answer. But I'm thinking back, and the propaganda that was happening during that time where it first became illegal just fucked like a whole generation and a half, like 2 generations almost. And like, I remember being in high school or grade school whenever when my brother got caught with it, like smoking outside with his friend who was his roommate at the time and like still is his good friend. He was just on the porch smoking, late at night. My dad busted him and like went ape shit. Like, and now it's like, how do you, as my father, I'm just like, how do you live knowing that that happened and now knowing that it's legal and not apologizing to your oldest son?
yeah,
And it all boils down to his whole life. He was being fed, this is how you can judge people. And, this is wrong. And like, even one of the people in the house, in the state government house in Champaign, did the your brain on drugs with an egg in a pan skit.
oh jeez,
And it's just like, are we really that dumb? Like, I don't know. I mean, you got to be happy where we're going, but it's frustrating when stuff like that happens. And I have these memories of, like that with my family, and there's still no apology. No apology will be given. And the worst part about it is, I think the people of that generation that were never open to it and believed all the propaganda, they aren't changing their minds still.
yeah. And I wonder, as I get older, like, I'm like, I think I'm pretty open-minded and I hope I stay that way. But it's like, you also get grumpier as you get older, and like, that's going to lead to not being as open-minded. And like, so like, I wonder if that's just, they're the last generation that was like so easily manipulated by like a mainstream agenda,
I think that's it.
and like, I hope like going forward, like, we're going to be the first open-minded, old generation, and when we're in charge, like, stuff will make more sense. But like, I don't know, man, maybe not. That may just be what happens when you get old. I don't know, we'll see.
Well, the thing is, I mean, specifically with you don't have to worry about your situation. You'll be fine and open. Like, you're going to be 60 and going up for Memorial Day tripping, so you're going to be open-minded, believe me. But it's just the internet, man. The freedom of information that there is now,
for sure.
Like, there's no turning back.
Yeah.
There's no turning back. I mean, you got countries like China that control their internet, but here with the freedoms that we have in USA, it's just, there's no turning back. You can't, like, look at I'm a perfect example of the current situation is like Kratom is like, every like couple years or every half a year, there's legislation to ban it.
Yeah.
But the internet fights back, and there's a million accounts of people that, I shouldn't say a million, but tens of thousands of accounts of it helping people, then hurting people.
Yeah.
That overpowers and sways the opinion.
Yeah.
And sure. I think that is, the power is in our hand at this point with the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, they can't really lie to us anymore. Like, now they can only distract us and scatter us, like, that's about the only thing they can do. But yeah,
you can lie, but the truth will come out at some point.
It does.
Yeah. So yeah, what a time to be alive, man. And I'm gonna be smoking legal weed in about 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely will be coming up there to check that out too.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But all right, man. Well, let's wrap it up. It's definitely
Cool thing.
good talking to you, and I'm glad we kind of waited, to tell you the whole story and stuff like that. So, it was good texting and stuff like that. But I'm glad we just got like a podcast episode in just us to talk about that trip, because it was definitely something that I think every time we talk about it, I'm going to remember something else probably. But
yeah. Well, and like, even though you want to do the video and you want to frame it and all that, it's always good to just get like the raw, like, blah out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I recorded probably about 5 or 6, video journals, like while I was driving around or just doing whatever the day after, or the couple days after. I'd just be like, oh yeah, this and that, and I think that's a good thing to do. Like, I've been journaling every morning, but I think the video journaling worked good for that, because it's just like I could just be like blah, 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 and just stream of consciousness. So, but cool. Well, all right. So thanks for everyone listening. As always,
get on the Discord.
Yeah, get on the Discord, because like I said, like, there's definitely a bunch of people that knew that I was doing this, because I didn't live stream it, but I just kind of kept everyone updated while I was going on, while I was up there, and posted pictures and, talking to people. And the Discord's so good for that. And I was just talking with someone today that some people met up like through it. They met halfway from where they lived, or they were going down there. I can't remember. But anyway, like, that's great. That is so awesome. Like, that is what I wanted. Like, the Discord isn't just to connect with me. Like, it's to connect with all of the others, like, just, yeah. And for people when they're having a bad day, to get on there and be like, what's up, guys? Like, what were you guys doing in this situation or whatever? And it's great for that. And so, yeah, definitely get on the Discord, follow the links to that. We have some, podcast, more podcast guests lined up. But as always, if anyone is interested or has a story, email me at helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. And more importantly, when I email you back, you have to respond. Don't just reach out and then then to be like, life gets in the way. Like, finish that thought, focus on that. And whatever inspires you to reach out and be like, I think I might like to be on that podcast, follow through with that, because like, that's what this is all about. It's not just my stories. Like, I only have so many, so like, we definitely look forward to guests. And if anyone wants to leave a message or a voicemail or a text for us to talk about on the show, Stan, what's that number?
567-233-1335.
Awesome. So yeah, until next time, thanks for helping find the others.